Okay, how's that?
I can hear you just fine.
There we go. That's a lot better.
I stole a cart picture from your page.
I seen that. That thing's that's got to be 15 years old at least. That was a long time ago, man.
How's the ice up by you?
Well, we got ice, I can say that, but it's spotty. You got to be careful, but we got fishable ice at least, so that's more than most people can say.
Gotcha. Ice. Let's see. So yeah, we'll chat about whatever. We'll give it to you a few minutes, let everybody kind of get in on here and talk about whatever. We can talk about ice conditions. I know there's a lot of stuff been happening up in Minnesota as far as ice conditions go, and down here we don't have any ice, so it's been stupid crazy.
Well, I would rather have what you have than what I got right now. We're stuck in limbo. There's not enough really to drive anything heavy out there. You got to walk everywhere, and half the lakes are so touchy that it's almost not even worth going in some of the lakes.
Ugh. That is no good. Yeah, well, you guys are getting some cold though coming up. I know we're supposed to be getting some cold. I think after tomorrow, I think it's supposed to be pretty decent yet tomorrow, like 35, and then the bottom kind of falls out. But we're nowhere near where we should be.
No, I should be worrying about driving 3/4 tons out right now instead of driving a side by side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brutal conditions, man. I hope none of us ever see a season like we've seen this year. And last year wasn't much better. You guys had a ton of snow, and we just didn't really get good ice. It just kept raining and raining and raining.
Yeah, this is the first for me this year. I've never seen it like this. Not even close. No. I appreciate. I've been out a few times, but I've only, to be honest, I've got 2 lakes that I actually feel safe taking people out on. And you're so limited. The it's fishing. You're catching a few panfish, but it's nothing spectacular.
Gotcha. Well, let's see. Yeah, we're getting. It's crazy. There's like this thing broadcasts Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then like I don't know what the other name of the platform is, and then that one sends it to like TikTok, and so I really have no control of how I can see how many people other than I can watch YouTube and Facebook, and you'll probably see the comments on your screen there too. I don't know if you can see those or not. Yeah, so those come from Facebook and YouTube, and then everything else I just got to kind of pop in and out of the platforms to see, just to answer any questions. So
okay, I appreciate you being flexible with me. That was a nasty little bug I got last week, and I was in no shape to sit upright, let alone talk about something for a while.
We all got COVID. Over the Christmas break, all of us were down. Last Tuesday night, I came on here and did this, but even I was, just struggling through it. Terrible headaches, and like it's the first time I ever got COVID too. Was like I had the worst sinus infection ever, and my kid got really sick. He was in bed with fevers, and he slept for like 2 or 3 straight days, and it was brutal. And then I got, kind of like another head cold, sinus infection type thing, and just didn't feel right. You're just kind of always in like a cloud, not really knowing what's going on, and just kind of disoriented. So yeah, I'm feeling quite a bit better here today and yesterday, but
good.
Just staying hydrated, and I need some fishing therapy is what I need.
It does miracles.
It does. Let's see. Have you been drilling much with the E40?
I've been so far exclusively using that. I mean, most I've drilled through is about 9 inches. So it's hard to give that a good test. That thing eats through it so fast. But
Yeah.
no, pretty impressed with it. It was, I got to drill with it a little bit last year. And I was impressed with it then, but I ran the Alpha all last year, and I was a pistol bit guy before that. So
Yep.
it's
I still love my pistol bit, my 6-inch, but now I've taken that and actually put it on the bottom of either the Ion power head or the E40 power head, and just using those things. And I mean, I love that E40. I drilled with it a bunch last year too, and between that and the Alpha, I don't know what a guy could really want more of. I mean, you don't need it.
that was the hard part at sales season this year. At show season is that E40 is more auger than most people will ever need.
Yeah.
And you're trying to upsell them to the Ion, and it's hard to do that because it's just, this thing is so great. If the Ion wasn't out there, this thing would be king of the hill by far.
Yep. And when you drill, it's when you get a chance to drill, with them side by side too. The Alpha, you can just tell how much, I don't know, what you want to call it. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's like driving my F-150 3.5 versus my 6.7 Power Stroke. I mean, there's way more power and just a little bit more smoothness to it, and they're both awesome augers. So
yeah.
All right, let's see. Yeah, I'll be the first one to say that I never got any COVID shots.
Second one.
Yeah. Yeah, wasn't doing it. Mr. Mike Olson. I should see if Mike wants to join in. He could chat with us too.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I'll shoot him a text. We got just a couple minutes. What else is going on? How was the show season for you?
It was really good. Did all the normal ones. Duluth was a new one for me this year, and that was actually a really good show. I had no expectations going into it, but Saturday was by far the best day, and it was a lot like St. Paul on Saturday. It was a pretty packed show, and I think the guys did a pretty good job. It was nice to have the Eskimo name plastered all over instead of the blue stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the Oshkosh show, oh my God, that place was absolutely insane. Blew everybody's expectations out of the water. I went into it, I made a bet with one of the other reps, Troy Tuma from Clam, and I said, this show has been at this location, I don't know how many different times, and each time we may be seeing 1,000 people in 3 days. So I wasn't expecting much at all. Now got a different guy that did a lot more promoting, and the fact that there was no ice, there's really not a whole lot of anything to do for anybody. And oh my God, there were people coming out of the woodwork, man. I think they said right around 15,000 people for the weekend. So, I mean, that's as big. Now we're talking St. Paul numbers. I mean, that's pretty crazy for a first time show. It was awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys had a little authority problems down there too, some parking issues or something.
It was beyond parking issues. It was so it's kind of a crazy venue in the fact that everybody has to come off of the interstate, and from the interstate to the road, the county road that heads towards where the convention was, is probably about a mile or so, and they had nobody directing traffic or parking in and out of that area. There was like one old guy, and he was holding up traffic, and then the high school fishing team kids kind of were helping park everybody, but there were so many people, they were backed up on the freeway, past the freeway, and the cops were getting all upset because they were causing traffic jams. And yeah, it was I guess a good problem to have, but not a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Next year they'll move it next year to where they hold the air show, is my guessing, at the EAA Convention Center. And the nice thing about that place is that place puts 1 million people through the grounds in 7 days every, July, August for the air show. So
Yep.
routing traffic, they've got that down to a science. 15,000 people is nothing for that area, so that should be better.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can start chatting a little bit, answer everybody's questions as they come along. It's pretty informal, man. We just have fun. So, a lot of times we'll get stuck on a topic, and people kind of chime in and do whatever we can to help them out. But I guess tell us about yourself, who you are, where you're at, and and then I lost them. Oh, that's it. Thanks for coming, guys. Have a good evening.
Wrong button.
So yeah, tell us who you are, where you're at, kind of your story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Randin Olson, that's my name. I run Lockjaw Guide Service here in Ottertail County. We're land of 1,000 lakes. I think we have 1,148 lakes just in this county. Pretty crazy when you live here. We kind of get used to having all these lakes, and we travel outside of this and see nothing but flat land everywhere, and it's kind of odd. So we're very fortunate. I've been born and raised in this area. Said I run Lockjaw Guide Service up here, and one cool thing about us is we're very multi-species. That's a big kicker. We got so many good lakes up here with so many good fisheries. If you're just stuck on one species, we can take you after that, but we really love to do like combo trips, crappies in the morning, walleyes in the afternoon, vice versa. Mix in some muskies, mix in some pike, some bass. I did a bullhead trip last year, so we'll about chase anything. So it's a really cool area.
So, I mean, I know Brewer and Agri and a bunch of the guys are up in that area. It's a pretty special place from what I gather. Like you say, the diversity. Going through some of your pictures, you guys got some phenomenal muskie fishing up there.
Yeah.
The walleyes and obviously panfish, crappies, and bluegills. What would you say is the stronghold up there?
I think to each angler it's a little bit different, but walleyes is probably the main focus up here. We're 15 minutes from where Lund boats are made. They're right down the road from my house here. And that's kind of the big deal up here is Lund boats and walleyes. But we were having this conversation about what's prevalent in our area before, and I felt a little spoiled because I did 47 muskie trips this fall, and we boated 49 muskies. And that's my worst year I've had in 3 years. The last 3 years I've been over 60 fish in those kind of about a month and a half span. So, our muskie fishing is really something to be held up high for.
You guys get size as well as numbers?
We get size. So last year I had 12 over 50. The biggest last year went 55. This year was a little off. This year we only had 4 over 50. The biggest was 52. But it's not, it's pretty much common for me in a fall to have at least 10 or so that are over 50. And a lot of those fish that are under are running like 46 to 47, 48, 45. So the small fish aren't even small.
Oh, that's great. Why don't we hear about that? Everybody hears about, Mille Lacs or Green Bay or Lake of the Woods. Why don't anybody ever talk about Ottertail County?
I'm not sure. There's realistically, we only have 3 lakes in Ottertail County, maybe 4 if I got depends on where the line's drawn on the north side of the county there. But we have basically 4 lakes in our entire county that have muskies. Statewide, there's only 99 lakes, I think. So it's a small group already. And I think people just tend to go to where they've heard of those giants like Vermilion and Mille Lacs and Leech. And, those have been staples for so many years. Our fisheries have been there just as long. It's just not as publicized.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I guess keep it that way for the best part of it. It's nice when you don't have all that competition. I see what's happened to the bay, to Green Bay over by us, and oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Come July, August, I swear every person that owns a muskie rod is on the bay fishing from the entire Midwest.
Yeah.
That, you're doing that kind of stuff in the summertime. What are you chasing, in the wintertime, and what's going on right now?
Well, we're kind of like everybody else, we're kind of waiting for this real cold snap to come and really heal our lakes up. But we do have fishable ice. I've been out since probably about 3.5 weeks now. Just little ways before Christmas, I was able to get out. We had some really good ice, and then we got like 4 inches of rain, so that's messed some stuff up a little bit. But we got some rentals we run in the winter. We got ice castles that we run for rentals, and then we do all the portable trips too. And that's what I really like, is just getting 2-3 guys with me, running and gunning across the lake, and figuring out a bite as the day unfolds and seeing where it takes you.
Sure. You chasing primarily the walleyes, or you doing panfish and mixed trips?
Yeah, a lot of mixed trips. Just as good as I do, and anybody that's fished enough walleyes in the winter, that you're going to focus more on those low light periods than you are in the middle of the day. You can get them in the middle of the day, but your odds just go up when the sun starts going down. So we'll spend a lot of the daytime chasing some bluegills or crappies around. Our crappie fish, they call this panfish paradise for a reason. When I go crappie fishing, if that crappie's 10 or 11 inches, I'm getting out of that spot and going to find a different one, because those are tiny. It's not uncommon in our lakes to pull up 14, 15 inches when you're out fishing. So we're pretty spoiled when it comes to that. Kind of the same step with bluegills too. If that bluegill's 6, 7 inches, it's not worth the time. There's a lot bigger fish out there.
Sure. What do you have everything at your disposal. What do you prefer to fish for?
If I'm going fishing in the winter, I'm kind of a big crappie snob. We eat some fish here, but we really don't. I clean fish all summer long, and the last thing I want to do is go clean more fish when I get home. But so we don't really eat that many fish. I'm more or less trying to go for. I've got a 17-inch crappie in my wall. I'm trying to beat that. And that's kind of my goal. So if I get some free time, that's what I'm going to chase, is some giant slavers.
Nice. Did you ever get a chance to go up and fish by Mike up in Flag Island, up in the northwest angle at all?
No, he's tempted me with stories for a while, but I haven't made it up there.
That is an incredible fishery for crappies. Unbelievable. I know it's gotten pounded over the years. I'm sure quality's gone down a little bit, but when we were going up there years back, that place is something special.
Yeah, and you gotta have those little special secret fisheries around. That's what makes everything worthwhile, is when you find those new ones.
Yeah. So here it is, January 2nd, and we're talking about not even being able to drive ATVs anywhere, in northern Minnesota. Around here in central Wisconsin, we put the boats back in the water, been fishing the rivers, and this is something that I don't think a lot of us are too familiar with. There's been a lot of talk about rescues and stuff going on up on Red Lake, and I believe a bomber went in up on Lake of the Woods. What's happening over in Minnesota? It's just crazy.
That's the best way to describe it, is it's crazy. But like I said, we got plenty of lakes that you can go out and fish on. The thing is that this year we just haven't gained the ice. We're not really losing it that bad. And it's really good ice. It's really dark, crystal clear ice. It's the stuff you want. The problem's been, it's been 30 to 40 every single day. And we're really not getting those lows. So you'll get a little bit of water on the ice, and these guys are getting so antsy to put a house out that water will just twirl underneath that house. And next thing you know, it just drops right through. So, you got to be careful. We got to treat this like it's basically Thanksgiving for us. That's when we're normally dealing with this stuff. So you just really got to be mindful. We're not there to put a house out yet. We need a good week of cold weather.
Sure. And look, you guys are getting it when? Starting tomorrow?
We're going to be in single digits tomorrow. It'll bump back up for a couple days, and then next week we go into a deep freeze. Looks like a lot of zeros, highs of about 10 or 12 each day. So by the end of next week, I would say we'll be pretty close to driving trucks out.
Okay. And what are you guys at normally? What's your normal temperatures this time of the year?
We should be below zero right now, if not at zero. We should be, and I said this earlier, we should be worried about driving a 3/4 ton right now out. instead of worrying about driving a 4-wheeler side by side. So that's about how far behind we are. We should be closer to 15 inches right now, and what I'm seeing is 5 to 7. So we're just stuck in this limbo. It's kind of miserable.
And there's so much talk, and you read all the hoopla on, all the different online places. It's global warming and this and that, and I'd have to suck along with something's going on. Maybe our seasons are flipping, or we're changing our seasons, because you look at what happens. We get that cold in October, and then it gets warm in December. So it's like a false fall, but then our springs, we don't get spring anymore. I mean, it goes right from winter to summer. These springs are so cold and they last so long that it's almost like there's a paradigm shift going on with our seasons. And who knows? Maybe we'll have ice until end of May this year, but I'd much prefer to be in the boat at that time of the year if we're going to get there.
Yeah. It's this is definitely an oddity, and we've been seeing it kind of go this direction the last 5 years or so. We've had some early ice outs, or some early ice ins, I should say, where we're out ice fishing by deer hunting weekend, first week in November and stuff. But for the most part, the last 4 or 5 years, it's been creeping closer to Christmas before we're really getting that good stuff coming, good cold weather. So global warming, I don't know what it is. I just fish. I'm not a scientist, but there's definitely some weird thing going on. I've never remembered winters like this in my life, and I've lived here my whole life.
No, I don't think any of us. I mean, but you go and you look at the news people have been talking around here. Back in the 50s, was the last time we set all the records that we broke this year were back from the 50s. So, there was warmth at one point in time. And I think it's just like anything else. There's cycles that we go through. We were in a really, really wet period up until this last summer, when it was one of the driest summers on record. We just came out of a time that was some of the wettest summers we've ever had. So I don't think anybody knows, and it's just something we have to learn to adapt. And the problem is like I was telling you, is as much as we want to get out and fish, guys want to be warm. I mean, nobody wants to go sit out in a boat and be cold, even though the fish are biting like crazy. It's ice fishing season, and that's kind of where everybody's mentality is at. And I know I'd much rather be out on the ice and in the boat cooking lunch and sitting in shacks and stuff like that with the guys. And it's, what do? You nothing we can do except just wait for ice and get out and fish.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, is you just got to be patient. I checked a lake the other day, and it was a 150 acre lake, shallow lake, tops out at like 20 foot. That thing should have had 8, 9, 10 inches on it, because Big Pine, which is 8,000 acres, I checked yesterday, had 7.5 to 9. The shallow little lake had 5.5 inches on it, and when I was going out towards the basin to check for crappies, it was open water out there. So you really just got to be patient. It's coming. We're gonna get it. We get it every year. It's just taking its sweet time this year.
Yep. Yeah. So we laugh, when we sit back and watch you guys from Minnesota. You're talking about 5 to 7 inches, and you're just starting to walk out. Man, if we had 5 to 7 inches, I guarantee you there'd be guys driving small cars out already. ATVs for us, once we hit like 4 inches over here, we're gone. ATVs and snowmobiles, we've got no problem driving on 4 or 5 inches. Most guys are walking, when we get 2.5 inches, everybody and their brother is out walking around. So when we hear you guys talking about and complaining about having 5 to 7 or only 10 inches, like, man, 10 inches, they're opening up the bridges and guys are driving vehicles everywhere.
Well, somebody's going to try it around here. I've had my side-by-side out. I'm comfortable with my side-by-side on ice that I know what I'm looking at, that about 6 to 7 inches. I'll take this out there. But like I said, I've looked at ice my whole life, so it's a little different from me to somebody that's just getting into ice fishing. So
Yep.
there's a lot of variables. Ice is never safe, but you just got to use your head. Go with a buddy. That's the biggest thing I can tell anybody. Don't go by yourself.
Right. How many guys have gone in Minnesota so far this year?
Oh boy. I know of at least 3. And I think there's 4 fish houses that went through this last weekend. We had that bomber we talked about. We had the Red Lake deal that's still shifting around. It's still open up there. So it's a weird year. The guys up in Lake of the Woods, they're running on like a dozen inches, 13, 14 inches from what I'm hearing. And they're having issues up there. So it kind of gives you a little warning.
Yeah. So, what's going on with Red Lake? I just kind of heard about that a little bit today too from some guys.
There's a big crack that's about, I don't know what it is, 50 yards wide, something like that. And it's basically right out where from the shoreline break. That's where that crack is, and it's kind of where everybody wants to go, and it's that big ice sheet is just kind of moving in and moving out, moving in, moving out, and it's just not healing. It hasn't been cold enough to heal up. So I think that's kind of the deal in a lot of our lakes. Why the ice hasn't froze when it was ready to freeze in October, I don't know, but we still got open water.
It's just crazy to see all the open water. I took a drive today just looking at some of the lakes, and there's no ice. I mean, it's not even really forming around the shorelines. We got all that warm rain, and now we got to basically start back over cooling all this water again. And we need some cold weather. I mean, cold weather, and the wind by us too has been really bad. All summer, all fall, we've had some just really, really windy days, and when it blows that hard, it doesn't get a chance to freeze. And I'm hoping it wants to go right. I mean, it lays down one night, and we get single digits or in the teens, and we'll have an inch or two overnight for sure. So, we just need it to get here.
Yep.
Well, it's enough of the doom and gloom. The fishing. What's your favorite way to fish? I mean, you're a tip-up guy. You like jigging?
I'm an oddity in Minnesota. I love my jigging. I'm always going to have a spoon or some kind of lipless crankbait, something like that, big, loud, aggressive bait down there. But I really kind of side with you Wisconsin guys. I love tip-ups, and not many people use them in Minnesota, and I just can't figure it out. It's probably the best way to present a bait in the winter you can possibly do. It's all by itself. Nobody's walking it. Nobody's stomping on it. It's just a bait in the water. So that's one of my favorite things to do is set tip ups out and, look out the window, see that flag up, and tell your buddy you got to go pee, and gently walk out the door before you go running to it. You got to have the games with it.
Oh yeah. Now in Minnesota though, you guys are only allowed one, or is it two lines in the winter?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you
2
can
lines.
jig with one in the shack and put a tip up outside.
Yep. I've kind of fell in love with those iFish Pros this year. This is the first year I really played around with them a lot, and it's been really nice. As mobile as I am running around in the ice, it's a lot easier to just pick a rod up, reel it up, and move my junk over 100 yards wherever I'm going. So that's been a really nice addition.
Nice. What now? Do you do much pike fishing through the ice?
Pike's a weird deal up here. When they're big, they're fun. But we have so many of these little hammer handles, they tend to be more of a nuisance than anything. And I noticed this guiding, and you might see it too, summer or winter. A lot of people don't get pike like we have up here. I mean, they're not giant. They're little 20, 30 inches, but people don't get that in Iowa and some of these other states that these guys are coming from. So it's a blast for these guys to catch pike, and I'm just sitting there going, it's just stealing my bait, man. We gotta get away from these things. But they're fun fish. Go ahead.
The nice thing about all those small pike though, if people that have never ice fished before, or if they got a bunch of kids just to go chase flags, Wisconsin, we could put 3 lines out per person. So if we're gonna go have some fun and people don't have the patience to sit there and jig, we can just go put out a whole spread of tip ups, put some for walleyes, some for pike. And the nice thing about it is with the multi-species, you're going to get perch, crappies, bass, walleyes, pike, kind of everything all mixed in. And it's just a good fun day just to have the kids run around and chase flags all day long.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've seen in my rentals and stuff. Is you're waiting for that walleye bite. There's spots I could put a house that are more probably better for just walleyes, but you're going to get a half-hour window in that afternoon bite. So there's a lot of other spots that you're going to have that multi-species action. And you're going to have lines going down throughout the day. So just keeps you busy. It's one of those fish that's kind of, if you can find weeds, you're going to find pike around here. It's pretty easy.
Sure. Now, your walleyes, where do you guys find most of your walleyes in the wintertime?
So our weeds tend to die really quick in the fall. Even this year, or other years where we had a warm fall leading up, our weeds will still die really quick. So a lot of our fish tend to get mud related pretty quickly. You'll get a week or two of weed line stuff, and then those fish kind of pull off into the mud, chase those panfish and those perch and little bloodworms, things like that around. And you can actually do a lot better if you're trying to multi-species or catch walleyes. You can probably do better setting up in a crappie spot, and you'll end up catching quite a few walleyes along with your crappies. So, but it's a needle in a haystack in the mud. Electronics and stuff has made finding spots easier, but nothing replaces just putting your boots to the ice and taking a camera with you and figuring out where these little hard spots are in the mud and doing all the research like that. So little time spent beforehand can help you out, but that mud bite is about as best as it gets.
Sure. That's kind of what we have here too. A lot of just open basin, no structure related fishing whatsoever. It's just needle in a haystack type of a thing, drilling lots of holes, using electronics to find the schools, and hoping to God you can stay on them for a few hours.
Yep. And a big thing around here is we have such small schools of fish, and you might see this too. It's not like Red or Lake of the Woods. Our structures might only hold 15 fish a night, or it might be 5 fish, or it might be 20 fish, whatever it may be. But it's a smaller school, so you might only get one really good night. Second night will be okay. Third night's usually terrible. So moving is a big key around here.
Sure. So you're guiding up there. You've got hard sides, rentals, portables, sleepers. I mean, what do you all have to offer? And, what do you charge, and how do you run all your guide business?
Yeah. So all of our rentals, they're all 17-foot ice castles. They call them a 17 because that's the square part. They're 21 foot with a V, I think, but they're all basically 4-man sleepers. They call them a 5-person, but it's a double with 3 bunks. So it's a comfortable 4-man. Perfect size house around here. Usually we can get them out pretty early. About 8-9 inches. I'm comfortable pulling those things out normally. Not this year, but so the way those work is I have them set up on a spot. I'm a one-man show. I move my houses every single week. Nobody ever sits in the same spot as somebody else sat. So I'm constantly moving those things around, and that's a big part of success is just being on fresh ice. That can get you a long ways too. So, but the houses are set up, holes are drilled. My houses all have rattle reels in them. They have bait buckets. They're the normal ice castle stuff, refrigerator, DVD player, TV, all that stuff. I have Markham underwater cameras hardwired into every house, and those are down the hole and ready to go when you walk up to the house. Generally, you drive right up to the door. This year it might be walking, but right up to the door, I kind of give you a little walk through the house, and then I kind of let you guys have at it. One big thing I like to do too is check on people a couple times a day. Just see if they got questions about fishing, see how things are going, make sure everything's good to go. And then on the portable sides, we'll kind of meet you at the access. We'll hop in the Ranger. We'll have all the sleds, everything with us. And basically you just got to show up dressed for the weather with that. And we're going to go chase them, to the best of your capability. Sometimes I got groups where we got to sit still and wait for them to come. Other times we got groups that are real mobile and we can run and gun across the lake. So we try to tailor the trips so everybody's getting what they want out of it. A lot of guide services just take you to a spot where they've been catching fish, sit there and you catch fish. So we want you to really learn something with this. The catching the fish is the bonus. We want you to, but we'd rather have you learn a lot more about fishing, walk away with some knowledge to do it yourself than anything. So our ice castle rentals, the hard side ones, we start those out with $300 a night for the house. We do run a lot of weekday specials and stuff through the season, but Weekends, normal rates 300 for that. And then our guide trips, our portable stuff, we do 400 and 550 for that, for 4 hours and 8 hours.
Okay. And what do you guys need to bring for both?
So that's a really good question. So on the portable stuff, you don't really have to bring much. Bring something you want to eat and drink, dress for the weather. I have all the rods. I've got electronics, bait. I've got everything we need. The hard house side of it, think of it like you're going to go to a hotel room for a couple days. Bring some food that you want. Bring your sleeping stuff and any clothes, any fishing tackle and stuff you want. Some of you guys don't have fishing rods or Vexlars or Markhams or anything like that. I've got that stuff to rent. Like I said, there's already a camera in every house. That's just a cool feature to have in there. Everybody's got to be able to watch what's going on down there. So, but I got a list of all that stuff too on my website, and that's www.lockjawguideservice.com. I kind of just list everything some stuff that people like to bring with.
Okay, that's awesome. That's probably the biggest question I always get is what do we need to bring? And we tell them you can bring as much or as little as you want. I mean, if you have a favorite rod or whatnot, sure, go ahead and bring it. But we're going to be fishing with the best of the best, and we're going to provide you with an experience that you're going to walk away with exactly what you just said. We want to teach you. We want you to be able to. If you want to go and do this on your own, we want you to feel comfortable going out the next day by yourself and understanding, what we did during a fishing trip. And some guys, they don't want that. They just want to go out and catch fish and have fun and drink some beers with the guys. And, that's great too. But we'll definitely do the educating and kind of teach people, how to use the electronics, how to use, different baits and rods and, your setups from A to Z, man. I mean, we'll go through it all.
Yep. And I think there's a lot of great fishermen out there that would probably make terrible guides. And the reason I say that is there's a big difference between guiding and fishing by yourself. You have to want to teach people to catch fish. You have to enjoy watching people catch fish. And that's the biggest kick for me is figuring out a pattern myself and then translating it to people that have never done it before in a short amount of time and making it a success.
Yep. Yeah, there's nothing better than, when you have, let's say you go out, and I know you've done this probably 1,000 times too. You go out, you got a great bite going, you get there the next day and that bite's gone. So then all you can do is put the boots down and, just start drilling holes, man, and using your electronics. And sometimes, you get lucky and you find them right away again. Other times it might take you half a day. We've got such big water over here on the Winnebago system that there's no way we can cover 140,000 acres in, an hour or two. There's times where, my buddy Jared, he helps with, usually I'll stay, with the guys or vice versa. I'll stay with the guys and he'll go out and scout, and one of us will jump on a machine and we may not come back for an hour or two. But typically when we come back, we're moving and we've got guys, and we've always said is we'll always put people on fish, but getting them to bite sometimes just, I can't make you eat, and there's no way we can make a fish eat.
A friend of mine
I do really like to eat my lunches, I will say.
Excuse me. A friend of mine always says we're fishing guides, not fishing gods.
Yep.
And we do our best. I go home the days that are bad days. I learn way more than I do on the good days. And those days that I do come home and it was a bad day, it drives me crazy for at least a week. I'm just trying to figure out what I missed. Where we fished enough tournaments. A lot of guys have. There's a bite going on somewhere at some point in the day. Whether it's a 20 fish bite or a 5 fish bite, there's a bite out there. And when you don't find that, it really drives me crazy.
Yeah. Like you say, we can be out and, with social media, these days, you can be chatting with buddies and, trying to say, all right, hey guys, what are you doing over here? Are you getting anything? And a lot of times the days we're not getting them, everybody will tell you the same thing. They're down there. They just don't want to chew. And, there's something going on above our power or know that we can't figure it out. And that's just Mother Nature. I mean, it's same as deer hunting. Everybody doesn't go climb up in a deer stand and shoot a deer every single time they go out. There's days where we don't even see deer. And next days you might see 50. It's like, where are those 50 deer the night before? Same with the fish. What's more frustrating though is when you're sitting there and you've got all these electronics and you're watching them swim around your baits. You're watching them take swipe at your baits. You can see them on the cameras and they just don't want to fully commit and eat. That's the days where you wish you had some dynamite with something to get things going.
Yeah, those are the days that you really, really earn your keep. I've been guiding now for about 12 years, and I still haven't figured out a good way to get over those days. They still drive me just as crazy as they did 12 years ago. That's just kind of the way I am. I want to figure that puzzle out, and when I can't, it's frustrating, man.
Yeah. It's frustrating for you and I both, but what really bothers me is, these people hire us to come out and show them a good time. And we still have to do that. Even if the fish aren't biting, you still have to make it a good time for these people. Sit inside, shoot the shit with them, tell jokes, make them a good lunch. I mean, you have to overcome the fact that, you know what, guys, I'm sorry, but these fish they're not going to eat. And when we get into those periods, it's like, I don't think there's going to be anything we can do that's going to fix this bite. We've got enough fish down underneath us that we should be catching something, but they just don't want to feed. And it's always, the days ends and people go home. And if you got time, you'll go back out, run around and, try and find something. And then all of a sudden, boom, the switch flips and it's pound town for like an hour. And as fast as it starts, it stops. It's crazy how that works.
Yep. And and that's just, I think people think that just because we're guides, we have it all figured out all the time. And I think if people understood how many times we got lucky or stumbled into something, or, I mean, we know I have a lot of knowledge in our heads collectively, but there's still times that fish are fish and they just do what they want. And sometimes we just get lucky. And that's all parts of the puzzle that all get put together in our own heads, but sometimes it just does not work. And I think that's something social media has done a bad job of portraying. You look on there, everybody's got fish. It's just fish, 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 fish. They don't do a good job of showing how many days somebody worked to find those fish and how many zeros they went through and how many holes they drilled. And there's a lot more to it than just reeling a fish up a hole.
Yeah. The saying always says, you always see people are always really quick to go and post a bad review, but they never post the good reviews. And on the flip side, for fishing, they always post the good pictures, but they never post the 15 days prior that they caught one or two or didn't catch nothing or just, had a bad day. Social media, you're always seeing the good because people want to show you that, but you never hear the back stories on what it took to get to that point.
Right. Yep. And I don't know where the future holds as far as that stuff goes, but it's one thing I've always liked to do is give an honest report. If the fishing stinks, I'm going to tell you, look, it stinks. I think we need to try for a different species or do something different to change it up. But honesty goes a long ways in this sport.
100%. And guys, that have fished with me, and even guys that first timers that have come out with me, if we get into one of those patterns midwinter where it's just terrible and I'm watching the weather forecast and I know what patterns are happening, I've got no problem calling somebody and saying, here's the deal, we're not going to catch much of anything. I gladly reschedule with you guys, but I just don't want to take you out there just to take your money and take you out on the ice and go through the motions. I'm far from that type of a person. I want to enjoy the day as much as they do. And I enjoy it way better when I can make sure people are catching fish and learning than just going out, sitting in the house and, having a good lunch during the day. It bothers us just as much as it bothers them. And, a lot of people, they respect the work that you put in and they understand that, fish don't bite every day, but there's always that one guy that thinks that you're God, you're the guide. They should be catching 1,000 fish a day, and it's a disappointment when it doesn't happen.
Yep, it's a fickle world. We're stuck living in it, so we do the best we can with it. Having a phone issue. I'm sorry. I'm grabbing a charger.
Oh, no worries.
So,
let's see. Any questions? So my buddy Bob, the legendary lunches. If I could run a food truck out on the ice, I wouldn't even have to fish. I just drive around food all day long.
That'd be okay too.
That's the fun part of ice fishing. I mean, I don't know if you guys do lunches or whatnot, or when you have your sleepers and your hard sides. Are there grills out there? Are there stove? I mean, what do the guys do for food? Can they cook out on your out by your houses?
Yeah, we got microwaves in each house. We got stoves, ovens in each house. A lot of guys will bring their turkey fryers and do fish fries right in the lake. We highly encourage that. I mean, that's the whole point. This is an experience to stay in a sleeper house. That's the whole point of this thing, is to have a great time and an experience. So part of that's cooking fish. Another part of that is not showering for 4 days. So it's just all kind of comes together, but that's the biggest thing. And you touched on it earlier. It's the customers, and I don't like using customers because all my guys I take out there, all my friends. But it's their vacation. It's their time away from whatever they do on normal days. So as a guide, you have to remember that. Like we said, if you have a bad day, you just have to remember that this is their vacation and make it the best you can make it.
Yep, 100%. And that's probably one of the coolest things about this sport is I think if you talk to any guide, anywhere in the world, the friendships that you make with clients and customers is unlike anything else. I mean, I've got to go fish different places all over the world because of being in the fishing industry. These different people, and I got one good buddy that runs a company that supplies all the herbicides and pesticides for the golf industry and Major League Baseball and all that. And I get to go golf some remarkable courses and hang out with all these superintendents all winter long because he takes his customers out with me. We get to be friends, and then in the summertime they're just like, yeah, come on out, man. You can golf anytime you want. And it's a cool experience to be able to interact with some people from every aspect of life.
Yeah, I had some of my clients got my kids Christmas presents this year. So we had the UPS guy come with a bunch of gifts that we didn't know who the heck got them. We had to do some calling and figure it out. But it really is. Marv Kep told me that when I first got into the industry, that after a couple of years, all you do is go fishing with your friends and they end up paying you in the end of the day. And it's true. It really is. A lot of these guys I take out have been friends ever since I started taking them out. We talk a lot even when we're not going fishing. We just see how everybody's doing and how things are going, and it's a way of life, I guess. That's a good way to put it. This is just it becomes part of you.
You couldn't agree more. And people that don't understand that, a lot of family and friends, they think we just go out and fish and that's what we do. But it's more than that. Yep,
it's one big happy family.
It is. So we got one question. John asked, Randin, what electronics do you use? And 360. That's a question mark with a 360.
I don't use a 360. I'll tell you straight up front, I'm a Markham guy when it comes to ice fishing. I love my Markham stuff. I have hummingbirds in my boat, and I do have a forward-facing sonar, but I don't use it like a lot of people use it. That's not my kind of go-to. I think if you're guiding and you're not using that, you're probably doing your customers some injustice just because of the ease to find fish with it and the ease to break down water. But day in and day out, you cannot beat a flasher. I've got my M1s and M5s with me all the time. Those things are my lifeblood. That's what I grew up fishing. I know how to read every single aspect of it. And I can break down water faster with a flasher, I think, than a lot of guys probably can with forward facing. So, That's my big deal is you got to have a flasher. Even if you have forward facing sonar, that's only going to help you find those fish. That beam on that is so strong that by cutting back to a flasher, you're going to catch way more fish than you will if you're trying to use that forward facing to do all of your work with it. Another big, huge deal for me, especially in the winter, is underwater cameras. And Markham's got it licked on that. They're the best, hands down. A lot of my guiding when I'm setting houses for people to come in for rentals, that's what I'm pre-fishing with, is a camera. I'm using that to see what's running around, size-wise, numbers, all that kind of stuff. So if I'm leaving the house to go ice fishing, I've got a flasher and a camera with me.
Ray says, "Wait, forward-facing sonar doesn't make them just swim up and jump in the bucket." No, Ray sure doesn't. And I guess that speaks a lot, because I do a ton of guiding in the wintertime. I mean, I'd say that's, makes up, if I could, I'd ice fish 365 days out of the year. And you go look at my wall out in the boathouse, and there's 24 Markham M5s on shuttles out there. You're another guy in a completely different part of the world doing kind of the same type of thing, but again, using flashers. So for people that question, what is the flash, or what's the electronic of choice to get? Sure, we all use whatever we can get our hands on to, locate fish. But when it comes time to fishing, 9.9 times out of 10, I'm just taking my flasher. Even if I'm just going out by myself, I'm one of these guys too that even in the summertime, I very seldom use my forward-facing sonar. I use my 360 a ton because I can drill one hole and scan a 300-foot circle and cover a lot of water really efficiently, and it saves so much time. But other than that, once we start fishing, I'm flasher, man. I mean, there's nothing better. It's lightweight. It's easy to move around. I love watching guys when we're hole hopping, and we're literally playing hopscotch on top of these fish and chasing these schools around, watching these guys try and carry a 15-pound unit around, and messing around with poles and stuff to try and get set up, because by the time they're set up, for the most part, we're already to the next hole. So don't get me wrong, it's great technology, and I love watching it, and I love setting it up for guys to see. But when it comes down to it, give me a camera and a flasher any day of the week.
I think one thing to remember too is a flasher is still the fastest unit out there. What I mean by that is there's zero delay in a flasher. Everything else has somewhat of a delay built into it, and the flashers don't. It's instant. So it's more real time than any other sonar can get, and it really gives you that really good feedback on what those fish are doing and how they're reacting to stuff, and just what's going on. And that's not even talking about all the other stuff you can do with sonars, with flashers, the bottom hardness. You can do the transducer swing and make your cone from this big to giant. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it. So it's a very, very versatile tool.
Yep. So I mean, I wish I could find the guys that made this clip, and I've got one left yet. But back way back, in the early Vexlar days, when these guys were fishing the backwaters of the Mississippi, these commercial fishermen were looking for carp underneath the ice, and they had a tool that they basically turned the transducer sideways, so you could drop the transducer and rotate it, and you'd be able to see off to the distance, fish or structure or whatnot. But really, they were looking for those schools of carp. So there was a company that made these things that clipped onto our Markham transducers, and it works just as good as any side imaging or anything like that goes, as far as finding different structure. Maybe you're looking for weed edges, or heck, even if you're out over the basins, just to put that thing kind of at like a 45 and rotate it around, and sure enough, you'll see fish 100 feet away or so. So like you say, I mean, give me one tool and I'm taking my flasher every single day.
Amen.
Let's see. Yeah, Casey says you get to see all the fish you don't catch. There's a lot of truth between camera and forward-facing sonar. Is pretty crazy. You know, on the flip side of that, though, you got to look at the guys that when Markham came out with the LX7, that was kind of a revolutionary tool for the guys that really like the digital aspect and having a 2D sonar, so to say. Markham's always been about speed, and they've always been about ice fishing. Where everybody else has been open water first, ice fishing secondary. Markham's stance has always been, we're going to build the best ice units, and if you want to use them in the open water, go right ahead. And between the LX7 and then the MX7 that came out here a couple of years ago with the GPS and that, when you sit and compare those two units to any other digital unit on the market, there is little to absolutely no lag like you see in our Humminbirds or our Garmin's or any of the other digital LCDs that are out there. It's just as fast as fishing a regular flasher, but there is still that minute little delay, especially when you're getting into a bite where those crappies or those walleyes are hitting really fast, and you're sitting there and you're watching, you're moving fast, and you'll come up and there's that little bit of lag, and you almost anticipate the bite before you actually see it on the screen. And it happens so many times, and the guys that can do it are the guys that catch fish. But again, it's knowing what you're looking at and what you're seeing, and I think learning what a flasher has done and reading a flasher definitely helps you even with the digital stuff.
Yeah, and one other thing I think Markham's done really well, and yeah, I'm on the Markham staff, but even if I wasn't, I'd still push this stuff because they've done they've made the best products they can make for ice fishing, and they're awesome. But one thing I really like what they've done is the amount of how you can dial that electronics in. Even if it's just a simple flasher to the LX7 or the 9 or MX7, whatever you're going to use, the features are on that unit, so you can really dial it into what you're doing. If it's a weed bite, if it's a sand bite, or whatever kind of bite you're looking at, and to get the best clarity out of that screen you can get. So they've done a remarkable job of that.
Yep. And I still, to this day, if you were in any type of a weed bite, you can throw those LCDs right in the garbage. You just cannot see the fish down in those weeds like you can with a flasher.
Yeah.
I can teach people, and I'll never forget the time I had Chip Lear come out, and we were doing an in-fish ice fishing show, and we were fishing these really deep cabbage beds. And he had, at the time, I want to say, God darn it, did he have an Aquaview? He had an LCD of some sort. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was the I forget. Anyway, he couldn't catch a fish to save his soul. Because I was watching him, and I had to give him a whole lesson on seeing the flickers down in the weeds, and I'm pulling fish after fish, and he's like, I can't see him. I just can't see. I'm like, you're not going to see him on an LCD. It's impossible. Yep. Those weeds are just turned into a big giant blob, and without that mechanical flasher emitting those pulses and seeing as those pulses move with those fish moving throughout the screen, it takes an art. I mean, it is an art to be able to read those, but once you learn that, you're deadly. I mean, when you can go and get into some weed patterns and see these fish that most guys have no idea what they're even looking at, that's when you're gonna outfish anybody else that's around you.
Yep. Yeah, and all of this boils down to just time on the water. It's just experience, and like I said earlier, the days you don't catch anything or the days you get terrible fishing, those are the best days for learning. You're gonna learn the most that day. You don't feel like it because you go home empty-handed, but that's the days you learn the absolute most about all this stuff. So electronics are a big deal. If you're not learning your electronics for ice fishing, you're really missing the boat. There's a lot of fish you're leaving behind just because you're not quite fully in tune with that electronics. So
yeah, I mean, electronics is everything, and And I know you've probably answered this questions a million times with people's, for somebody that's looking to get into the sport, what should they get? Do they need a camera or do they need a flasher? And I'm always going to say buy a flasher first and then a camera second. And then any of that fancy other stuff, get that stuff last. But
Yep.
a flasher, no matter how dark it is, no matter how stained the water is, no matter how deep it is, a flasher is going to work in every single scenario.
Yep. Yep. It'll never leave you stranded. That's for sure. There's just nothing you can't do with it.
Yeah. Let's see. Question. So, your forward-facing sonar or you say you do or don't have a 360?
I do not have a 360.
Okay, so
I've never actually even looked at one, so I've kind of stayed away from that market of it. I guess I kind of jumped from the old school. I still had my flasher on my boat next to my graph system, tell me what mapping was up until I kind of switched over the last few years. So I'm a big side imaging guy in the summer, and I'm a giant flasher guy in the winter. That's just kind of the way I've learned to fish, and I probably got to adapt a little bit, but I'm still kind of stuck there right now.
Sure. And again, we have all this stuff on our boats, right? And we have it, at our disposal ice fishing. And, the one, like I keep saying to everybody, is that 360. And for you, especially up on those, up on your lakes, I don't think there's a better tool made for locating fish, honestly. For the ice fishing guys, to be able to drill one hole and scan a 300-foot circle in less than 15 seconds. I mean, there's nothing you can do to beat that. It's super good technology. Now, is it as crystal clear and detailed? I can't tell what fish are. I can't tell what depth they're at. I can just tell that, yes, I've got structure over here. I've got some fish over here. I might have a drop off, or maybe there's like a river channel or something going through the lake. I can see that kind of stuff. But other than that, I'm not sitting there reading and dissecting this thing at all. It literally is a drop it down, watch the screen. If I see fish, that's the direction I go. If I don't see fish, go drill another hole. And once we get on them, that gets shut off for the most part, goes away, and we just get the flashers out and we start drilling holes and fishing.
Well, one thing I would give and like I said, I've never used one. This was some stuff that I'd watched, and I think all of us do this. We watch people on YouTube and we read articles, and we're always trying to learn more. I'd watched a guy with 360 go out, and he was fishing mud flats. And what really interested me is when he would get that thing going and get his screen time up, you could pick out the hard spots in the mud instantly off that 360. And that alone would be a reason why I would get it, just to save a ton of time of drilling holes and dropping cameras and flashers trying to figure out where those little spots are in this endless basin of mud, basically. So that would be a really big advantage.
Yep. And you hit the nail on the head. It's all the fine little details that we're looking for on why fish are where they're at. For sturgeon spearing, it's so invaluable because you guys, for anybody that's never really seen what you're looking for when you're sturgeon or looking for sturgeon for spearing over here on the Winnebago system, our lakes are really shallow. So, when we're on the upper lakes, we're talking 4 to 6, maybe 7 feet in the majority of the lake. And when we get out in the Winnebago, our max depth is 20 feet. But most of the fish, when guys are looking, are going to be in some of that, 15, 16 feet of water or so. And what you'll see, and believe it or not, it's as plain as day, is you will see the suck holes in the bottom. And if you see that, number one, there's sturgeon around because obviously they're, sucking the bottom, but there's larvae or there's, redworms or something is in that area that is drawing those sturgeon in. And when you find that, you're going to find everything else. You're going to find the perch, you're going to find the crappies, the walleyes, everything else is going to be in that area because they're feeding. And that's what we have for, primary food sources, a lot of bugs and a lot of redworms in our system.
Yeah. And one thing, just, this is a summertime deal, but I just want to add it in because it gives, it just proves your point so much more. We have an open water muskie bite here in June. Fish are essentially in the middle of nowhere. You're fishing a basin that might be 70 foot deep, and these fish are 10 foot under the surface, 15 foot down, something like that. They're way up on top. But the oddity is we catch these fish on the same waypoints every year. So there's never not a reason why a fish is in a spot. There's always a reason why he's there and what he's doing. So just to clarify that's a big thing. And you got to remember, you got to put those in your brain and really focus on that stuff when you're looking to dissect lakes.
Yep. You go and look at your locators or my locators that are on our boats or snowmobiles, and you can go back. I'm terrible at clearing waypoints. I've got waypoints probably from 20 years ago on my graphs. And what's neat about that is I put everything onto my computer and I categorize everything by dates. And you can go through and watch the seasonal patterns. If you're winter fishing or summer fishing, you'll watch how these fish, migrate, make a turn and come back, or wherever they're going. But it is to the T every single year. These fish do the exact same thing. It's not by chance. They are following a pattern of food or whatever your system or lake has to offer. These fish make those seasonal patterns for a reason. It's not just because of some fluke that the wind's blowing or whatnot. These fish are making those patterns in their movements off of seasonal changes, whether it be food or current or anything else. But if you go back and take a look at 20 years of waypoints and look at December, January, February, and look at how all these waypoints match up, it's almost on top of each other every single year. And I'm sure it's the same way with you guys, where you're at too.
Yeah, it's identical. I'm the same way with my waypoints. I've got waypoints from the map that I use in my Hummingbird was actually, it's a Gen 1 10-inch screen. It was back when they first started coming out with the Helix series, and I still got all my waypoints from back then on that thing. And it's just like you said. I don't drop any waypoints anymore because 99% of them there's already a waypoint on the spot that I'm fishing, and it's really odd to me, and I get clients that kind of make fun of me for this, but I can't remember what I ate for breakfast, but I can tell you what a waypoint is on my depth finder that says WP 401. I can tell you exactly what we caught off that spot, what we were using, what the weather was like. I just can. So maybe that's the fisherman in me or what it is. But no, it's one thing I always tell people too, when it comes to your electronics, whether it's ice fishing or summertime, when you catch a fish, drop a waypoint. When you catch another fish, drop a waypoint. When you catch another fish, drop a waypoint. And just keep doing that. And the reason for that is when you zoom out on your map, you'll start to see patterns, just like what we were talking about. You'll see these little cups that these fish want to sit in, or maybe it's a point or whatever the structure is that these fish are relating to. You'll find those little kind of highways and honey holes just by dropping a waypoint when you catch a fish. You go by the majority. There'll always be a few outlanders, but that's just a really good way to kind of help you learn a lake. Just keep dropping waypoints. You can always delete them.
Yep, absolutely. And we talk about it. I talk about it in my seminars all the time. Is the majority of our scouting is done right before ice up, before the ice comes, before the ice fishing season. Now, especially this year, I tried to hit as many lakes as I could this fall out by me, because our water dropped anywhere from 5 to 6 feet on these lakes from last winter. So all of my weed edges they're gone. Sandbars and stuff that we were fishing last year, they're gone. It's now everything has changed. And to go out and try and dissect a lake that's dropped 6 feet without going out there in a boat and actually scanning everything and kind of making new maps and learning where the weed pockets are. And, these weeds now are another 3-4 feet deeper than what they were last year. So that affects everything. And going out and doing that stuff while you still have a boat makes it a lot easier than it does to go out and start drilling a whole bunch of holes and trying to remap everything, when you got the ice cap on top.
Yeah. One other thing too, if you're somewhat new to ice fishing, or maybe you don't have the time to explore water like we do in the fall, that's one really lucky thing that guys that get to fish every day get to do, is we get to fish every day. So we can afford to take some 0 days and some get kicked in the face a few times, where the average guy's got, Friday, Saturday to fish, and they just want to get out there and get on fish. And I completely get that. But if you take the time and you learn a body of water, you're going to outproduce 90% of the people fishing out there. The old saying, 90% of the anglers catch 10% of the fish. That's pretty much what it is. So that 10%, they catch 90% of the fish, and it's a reason they're putting the work into it and they're learning this stuff. But when you get to a lake, make a big lake small. That's something I see a lot of guys doing, is they'll fish a spot on the south end of the lake, and that didn't work. So then they head all the way to the north end, then they're all the way over to the east end and the west end, and you can't put a pattern together doing that. So pick a section of the lake that's got some good structure stuff to it, and just stay there. You could fish all day long in a lot of these lakes on a half-mile square, and still probably not cover it all. So just make a big lake smaller. And one thing that you hear this a lot, and I'm sure you tell people this a lot, this is probably in every seminar, every spoken about ice fishing: get away from the people. Just because there's a group of fish houses over there, that's not the only fish in the lake. So go set up completely somewhere brand new. If you zero, well, you zero, but you learned a lot more. So just don't be afraid to zero. That's the biggest thing.
We've talked about it, and I'm starting to really, push this onto people more and more. People look at success as how many fish you catch.
Mm-hmm.
That's the wrong way to look at. A successful day to some people is when you get your limit of fish. Don't look at it that way, because you might get your limit that one day, but that's it. You could go back and fish the same spot tomorrow and it's gone. If you go out and, let's say the first couple weekends you go out, you just go dissect some bodies of water. I might catch a couple of fish here. I'm not going to sit there and pound it. I'm going to okay, I'm in 12 feet of water on a cabbage bed. What other spots like this are on the lake? And then you force yourself to go look for other areas. It's like, oh man, I never knew this weed bed was here. Boom, drop another waypoint. All right. So now the whole rest of the winter, you've kind of figured out a lake that you can go and, if you don't get them here, you can go here or here, and stay away from the people, because the people are just chasing people. I mean, we see that so much in our system, and I don't know how it is by you, but, us as guides, these people, they fish with their binoculars. They look for us, and as soon as they see us move or they see us catch a fish, there's 500 people on us in about 30 seconds. And when that happens, you're in 5 feet of water or less, and you take 1,000 vehicles and just and move into an area. What happens to those fish? They don't stay there and be like, hey, let's stay with the party. They're, see you later. And you gotta stay on top of them. But what's neat about the lakes where I live, and kind of like what you guys over in central Wisconsin, a lot of the lakes are a lot what you guys have over by Ottertail. Deep glacial lakes with good structure and different types of structure. Whereas our big lake like Poygan and Bötehouse and Winnebago, it's the abyss, man. You've got 3 to 7 feet of water for the most part on Poygan, and there's no structure. It's zero. All you have are big schools of fish that keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the winter goes on. Right now you've got all these different feeder creeks that the bait have dumped in, and you've got pockets of fish everywhere. But as soon as people start getting out there and, driving around, these fish get schooled up, they get spooky. And now you just got these biomasses of fish that are constantly moving around on the lake. It's impossible to stay on top of them unless you're, literally drilling every 3 minutes to stay, on top of the school that's moving.
Yeah, and you touched on something really, really important there too. This is way more important than in winter than it is in summer, and it's a big impact in summer too. But noise on the ice, ice to me is like a megaphone. Like when you're walking on that ice, if you're ever sitting in an ice castle at night or in your portable after dark when it's cold out, you can hear the lake going kaboom, and you'll just hear it go all the way across the lake. It's the same thing when you're walking across the ice or you're drilling holes, jumping up and down or running after tip ups. That's putting vibrations straight through the ice, straight down into the water. And those fish feel that, that's underneath that ice, it's nothing. Everything's sitting still unless you got current or something moving through there, but everything's basically sitting still. You're not having wind churn things up and make noise and dirty water and all that stuff. So you have to be very mindful of that when you're ice fishing. A lot of times I don't wear cleats on my shoes just for the fact that it's so much louder with cleats on. I'll fall on my butt a few times a day just to save the cleats off. But that's a really big key. We've got some walleye bites around here, especially going right now where they're in 4 to 6 foot of water at night. And if you're loud, you will not catch a fish. You need to be there 2 hours early, have your holes drilled, find your holes that you want to sit on, and you stay put. No lamps, no lanterns, no lights, no walking around. You stay nice and stealthy and quiet, and you're going to catch fish.
Yep. Yeah, I try the cleats, in the 2-3 years ago, it used to be the gas powered augers, but now with the advancement of augers, the ions, E40s and stuff like that, and the pistol bits, very seldom do you ever hear a gas auger anymore. So,
Yep.
But what's crazy, and I want to contradict people a little bit on this, and I'm going to shoot actually some video once we get ice. I've got a list of things I want to get done to kind of be that myth buster is, when it comes time to augers, especially, and Bob just said the guys drilling holes at prime time are my favorite, the guys making all the noise, right? But, for years, we always thought that the gas augers were the redheaded stepchild. I'm going to tell you, after spending some time under the water with hydrophones and being under there and listening and getting a grasp on what noise is actually being picked up, the cleats, I hate cleats. I mean, unless it's like completely super slick when you got that light dusting of snow and there's nothing you can do to stay on your feet, I'll put on cleats. But like, we've been out a few times first ice, and listening to the guys walk around with cleats drives me insane.
Yeah.
It spooks these fish. Typically you're in shallow bays fishing panfish, and that crunch, man, it's amplified so much underneath the ice, it's not even funny. But to go back to the auger things, I spent a lot of time recording the audio from hand augers, electric augers, and gas augers. And believe it or not, you don't hear the motors running. What you hear when a hole is being drilled is the and then once it hits the bottom, you hear that the bubbles and stuff.
Yep.
So you got a gas auger. As long as the guy doesn't have a 1950s Jiffy with dull blades that have never been sharpened, that runs for 30 minutes to drill one hole. I'd much prefer a guy with a big gas auger. Drill that hole, get it over with, get it done fast, and put your auger away. It's the guys with the hand augers that are the worst. Just up and down and making all kinds of racket. That is horrible. So the faster you can drill a hole, because for the most part, all you're hearing is the auger going through and then that last little bit as it breaks through. I'm very, very cautious on when I drill a hole. I drill it, and as soon as it breaks free, I don't sit there and go up and down. I literally, as soon as it breaks free, I shut it off, pull it out, and go to the next one, drill it, shut it off, and pull it out. Because all that extra banging around is what's making all that noise and spooking the fish. But on top of the noise aspect, people don't realize the shadows and the light from up above, especially right now when you don't have any snow on the ice. When you're down in the water, and for your customers once, just take a camera. And if you're in, 12 feet of water, I don't know how your water clarity is, but turn your camera and look straight up once from the bottom and look up. And your shadows create so much movement. Just a tiny little bit is like amplified times 1,000 down under the water, especially on bright sunny days. Picture, your hands, take a flashlight, right? Shine your hands or a flashlight in front of your hand and look at the wall, 50 feet behind you, and your hand is, the size of an elephant. that's what's happening underneath the ice too. So for guys that are moving around a lot, especially in shallow panfish bites and whatnot, it's so important to sit still. And I've gotten to the point where if it's super clear out, I won't even use a portable, just because
Right.
you're creating such a giant black hole underneath these ice that these fish, they'll come up and they'll swim around those shadows. They won't even
Yep.
get near your hole to get to your bite. They come up, they see that blackness from up above, and it freaks them out, and they'll swim around. Now, granted, if they're on a suicide mission, doesn't matter what you do, they're just going to eat, and you're going to catch fish. But on days where you're struggling and you're starting to pinpoint and really dissect what's going on, just pay attention to some of those small details once, and it's going to make a difference for you for sure.
Yeah, if you're anybody's ever out with me early ice and we got just a dusting of snow where you got mostly glare ice and a little maybe sand or snow banks here and there that are this thick, you'll notice all of my lines, all my holes, everything's drilled on bare ice. And that's exactly what you were saying. Though that little bit of snow sitting on the ice, that's a huge black shadow going down through the lake. Obviously, once you get that much snow in the lake, that kind of goes out the window. But the other aspect of it comes in is how many holes you're drilling. And if you got an area that's drilled out and refroze, you're going to have more light penetrating through that area than you will an area that's untouched with a bunch of snow on it. So it's a rabbit hole for sure. I mean, you can go a long ways down this thing and how careful you want to be with sound and noise and light and all that stuff. But it plays a huge role in especially on the tough days. It's a really difference maker.
It's time on the water, it's experience, and it's the fine details that separate really good anglers from your average guys. I mean, and that goes with hunting, fishing, plumbers, electricians. I mean, anything you do in life, the more you do it, the small little things are the things that you pick out and you remember. And I can't tell you, I mean, I'll never forget the saying, black to brass or you fry your ass, right? When it comes to electrical stuff. So, just all those little things that you think of and that you pay attention to is going to make you a much better angler. The guys from Long Ice had a question for you. Do you have customers asking to do overnights in portables? It seems like more and more anglers are wanting to get out and get into that ice camping.
That is becoming a very big deal right now. I haven't heard a lot of it around here yet, but that's something we're going to be running. I'm trying to get it going this year, where we're going to kind of rent out packages, like ice camping packages. We'll have an Eskimo 850 and a bunk and a heater and kind of the essentials to get you rolling. But that's definitely becoming a big thing. And I think, there's two sides to that. There's the glamping side of it, where people just want to experience sleeping on the ice and stay in a tent basically on the ice. And then there's the other side of it, where guys are taking advantage of the most time they get to fish, which would be at night for a lot of these guys that work all day long. So it's a really cool aspect of fishing, and it's kind of that you're still keeping with that mobile theme somewhat. You're still moving around and still dissecting water, but it's gaining popularity fast. So we don't offer it yet, but we're working on it.
Eskimos come such a long way, and their 850 or their 650 Outbreak series, if you're looking into getting into ice camping, there is not a better shack made for that sole purpose. Heck, I even know guys that now, that 850 being insulated, use it in the summertime for camping. I mean, they set up nice and easy. You can lay a tarp down on the bottom, for a floor. If you're, ice camping, obviously a lot of these guys go and buy those tile floor mats and piece everything together when it's set up inside your garage or whatever. Make a floor that all snaps together. Put a cot. You see, guys got their TVs, generators. I mean, they've turned these things into mobile wheelhouses that are what, $600-700 for a shack, and you can basically do everything you want to in a wheelhouse in one of these portables for a fraction of the cost. And if you've never spent a night out on the ice, especially when it's really cold, it is an experience that you'll never forget. The noise and the singing that those lakes make is unbelievable. It's so much fun, and it's a different type of peace.
It really is. I got a lake a half a mile that way from me right now, and when it's cold out in the winter, I can hear that lake. That far away from me, I can hear that lake booming and popping and banging and just rumbling. And it's kind of a soothing sound in a way. I mean, every once in a while, I'll get some guests that call me at 2 a.m. and want me to come pick them up. But for the most part, it's kind of a soothing sound. And it's just such a cool experience. And I don't care if you come with me or you go to Lake of the Woods or wherever you go, you have to at least experience it once in your life because it truly is an awesome time.
Yep. So, I've always wanted to run the sleepers and stuff out on the Winnebago system. But the problem is you guys get ice, not this year, but you guys get ice every year. You get a lot of it typically that you can get houses out on. We're going on now, probably this will be 3 years that, guys with big wheelhouses and that might have a week or two window where you can get them out. And that's it. I mean, it's such a gamble on our system, and it's not like what it used to be 15, 20 years ago where, come Christmas time, it was just the norm to be driving vehicles everywhere. And, the last few years, it's been sometimes end of January, first part of February before we're driving vehicles out on the lakes. So to invest in these, $30,000, $40,000 wheelhouses and have a whole bunch of those things set up someplace, you can have people stay on land and, use them as campers. But as far as getting them out on the lakes, we struggle. And if we ever get back into it, I would love to do it because I get so many people that would love to come out and just experience that. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that do it, but it's a very short window. I mean, we've got a lot of times maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks at most here where I feel safe enough to drive, a big truck and some campers and stuff like that out on the ice.
Yeah, it's getting shorter this around here too. Growing up around here, and granted, fish houses have gotten bigger over the years, but Thanksgiving was kind of always our time frame when we pulled our fish houses out. That's just you sat down, you had Thanksgiving dinner, and you woke up Friday morning, you pulled the fish house out in the lake. And normally at that time we were running 10, 12 inches of ice by that time. So we haven't done that now, and man, it's been a decade, I bet, since we've really realistically done that. So it's definitely changing, but everything's changing right along with it, and you just kind of keep up with the times and do the best you can.
Are your winters going later?
They're going later. The latest I ever remember ice being on our lakes when I was growing up, 1 year we had the week before opener, we still had 20 inches of ice, and it was all gone by the next week of opener. That was about as close as we ever got, but we're tending to see a lot more snow once we get into back half of February and into March and April. We're still seeing those cold temps, 15 to 20, 25 degrees all March and April. So our winters are definitely extended out. Like we were kind of talking earlier, it's almost like the months got moved back a little bit. We're in January now where we should be in December.
Yeah. And when you say that, just look at the last 10 years, even for us, how many years have we had ice on opening weekend of fishing? Way back when ice was always gone, early April, maybe, never going into the first week in May. And I bet you in the last 10 years, half a dozen of those years, we've had ice floating around on the lakes. If not, we've been out ice fishing on opening weekend, which is the first week in May. It's like everything's getting pushed back.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's thrown fishermen off a little bit too. We're so used to, like around here, when the lilacs start blooming, the crappies are in the spawn. The first rainfall of the year, you start using crawlers. When the oaks start dropping acorns, you pull out the big chubs and you start rigging for big walleyes in the fall. We're off of that now. You know what I'm saying? I got guys that come with me every year and they say, we came up to this lake for 30 years in June and we've always fished these areas and always done good. Well, our June now was probably your May back then type of deal. The timings are different. And and it's hard to adjust because we're creatures of habit. That's just the way we are as humans. So you have to learn to adjust with what the weather's doing.
100%. Same thing here. When the lilacs bloom, it's white bass time on the rivers. And the last couple of years now, granted, when the lilacs bloom, it's typically around Mother's Day, and the fishing has been decent, but the prime bites have not been at that time anymore. Guys that are planning their trips around those traditional days, you need to start adapting. Because the seasons are changing, and the fishing seasons and how these fish migrate and stuff are definitely changing right along with it.
We're probably a good month behind up here. Now that I'm kind of thinking about this a little more, I used to run a lot of crappie trips before walleye opener, and there was a lot of years where we'd catch crappie spawning before walleye opener, or at least pre-spawn, kind of right next to that era. And now I'm running a lot of my spawning or pre-spawn crappie trips are running at the end of May or into June, so it's moved quite a bit.
Sure. And
but
it goes for hunting too.
Yeah. Yep. I do think that's a good point to tell people to learn to fish the day and not your memories, and you hear a lot of people say don't fish memories, but one kind of weird fact about me is before a guide trip, whether it's winter or summer, I usually get to the access close to an hour before my clients come. And I just kind of sit there and feel nature. I don't know how else to explain it, but I feel the wind, I feel the temperatures, I just kind of listen to what's going on. And it sounds really corny, but I kind of get in tune with nature, if that makes sense. And some days I still fail, some days I still zero, but a lot of days it kind of, you'll get an idea in the morning, like where I got to go start fishing, what I should try to do, what does today feel like as far as a bite goes. So it's just something that I do that I don't really see a lot of people doing. They tend to go so much off memories that the new stuff just throws them for a loop.
Yeah. Intuition is huge. That goes with anything, whether you're a sports guy or, an outdoors guy, or it doesn't matter. But when you feel something, go with your feeling, man, go with your gut. And the more you're out there, the more you learn, and it just becomes that natural thing for you. I grew up on Winnebago. It's a big body of water. I'm not afraid of it. I know enough that, okay, different weather patterns, different days, I just know what to go look for and what to do. Do I go and fish exact spots all the time? Absolutely not, because those are the community spots. Everybody knows about those spots. But if you know of areas that are like that good spot and you can go get away from the people, you're going to typically do better. And there's a lot of times, even when I got clients out, I'll be like, you know what? Okay, we've caught some fish. Do you guys want to go try something? Just, out of the blue, let's just go make a couple casts here. Let's just go try this and see what happens. We don't have to give it, a couple hours, 15, 20 minutes. We're going to tell what's going to work for us or not. And man, when that happens, more times than not, plans come together. And, I'll learn something right along with my clients, and we have an absolute ball. Whether it be, going and fishing a spot where, I know there's some smallies that have been over there, and you go check it out, and man, you run into a whole school of walleyes. Or, just adapting and trying new things is always such an important part of fishing.
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head there. That's something I preach a lot of, is fish the pattern, not the spot. The spot is basically irrelevant. I don't care what lake you're on, what system you're on. The spot really doesn't mean jack. It's the pattern that you're fishing that means everything. So just because a spot was good 10 years ago, you just talked about your water levels changing, weeds change, everything except rocks basically change in a lake over time. So focus on the patterns, quit worrying about the spots, then that'll up your odds right there.
Yep. And it's funny you mentioned that. On the Winnebago, I know you guys get the big ice shoves and stuff on the Lacs too, but on the Winnebago chain, or on our system, we've got a lot of shallow reefs that come up to 3-4 feet or so. And if we get a really thick ice year, when that ice goes off in spring, it does move our rocks. It pushes these reefs around like crazy and changes the entire structure of that lake on some of those years. And I mean, guys that want to argue that, talk to some of these power boaters once that go over the same trails and waypoints for, going from south to north on these lakes, and ask them how many lower units are missing.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden, there's a rock pile out in the middle of nowhere. But these ice shoves come in with such force, and as they pick up, the rocks on the bottom of the lake, and man, it just pushes and pushes and pushes, and pretty soon you've got rock piles that have never been there before. And again, time on the water, where those areas are at. And every spring, especially if we have a really thick ice year, before I even think about going out and running around on some of these areas where all these reefs are, I'll go and check it out with side imaging, and just make sure that I don't have to worry about finding a new rock pile with the boat.
Yeah, kind of a cool example of that on Ottertail. That's our big lake around here. It's got just shy of 15,000 acres. There's 4 rivers, basically 2 creeks and one big river that kind of come in and out of it. And there's not a ton of structure. It's just basically a big wide open lake. But we have a sand hump out there. And this hump is in about 35 foot of water, comes up to about 24. And I told you I had my graph from 10 years ago yet. My original waypoint for that hump is about 50 foot north of where that hump is actually now. So just a little bit of current and stuff in that lake has just moved that sand down just a little bit farther, and it's changed the landscape of the lake. So that's why I always stick to patterns, because your spots will change, everything changes. Patterns won't ever change.
That's Al Qaeda. They're screwing with our GPS.
Yep.
Well, I guess, do you have anything you would like to touch on at all? I'm just trying to read through some of these comments or questions.
Well, I'm going to say it again, even though everybody's been saying it in every podcast and seminar since we started show season, but please be careful on the ice. I've been through a couple times. I've been through in a side-by-side. I've dropped a fish house through. I've been through out walking. It is not fun. So just be careful. Take a buddy with you. No fish is worth going for a swim under that ice, because it's not as fun as it looks on TV.
Yeah, it's, we all want to be here for our kids and, and our grandkids and everybody else. Don't be stupid for a fish.
Yep.
I had so many people get pissed off at me last year because I stopped taking trips and was really, really cautious. Guys like Randin, myself, we're on the ice every single day. There's people that consider themselves ice experts or whatever you want to call them around here that are doing reports, and that's all fine and dandy. But unless you're on these lakes, covering these bodies of water, being out there every single day, when I start to feel afraid or I start second guessing myself, I'm done.
Yep.
It's not worth it. I don't care what anybody else says. But when you start second guessing yourself and going off of what you're literally seeing physically and not listening, I don't ever listen to people's reports. I don't ever trust anybody, what people say. I have to see it for myself before I'll put anybody's life in jeopardy or take a chance. Because, like they say, no ice is ever safe. But just, you can't stress it enough to be overcautious.
Yep, you have to put your blinders on. I don't care if you see a 20-foot fish house sitting in the middle of the lake, don't just take it for granted that the ice is good. I see this every year where a guy will drill out 3-4 holes, maybe 100 yards offshore, and they throw their auger on the back of their Ranger and just go. And it's stupid. I can't think of an easier way to say it. It's just dumb. So just please be careful.
Yeah,
we want to see all you guys at the shows again. So.
Definitely bring some money.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, guys. Please support your local guys. Us guys, we're hurting. and we haven't worked now in a little while here, and I cannot wait to be able to get guys out. I had to cancel another trip again for tomorrow and this weekend. Hopefully we can maybe start to find some walkable ice, but like what Randin was saying earlier, is these are vacations that have been planned for a year in advance, and to be able to tell somebody we can't go because Mother Nature just doesn't want to cooperate is heartbreaking, not only to them, but it hurts us too. I mean, not throw the money side away. This is our passion. This is what we do. It isn't about making a dollar or anything. It's wanting to get out there and do what we enjoy, and that's being out with people. And it's so hard for a lot of people to understand that. And we're just one little aspect of it. The economy relies on snow and ice and everything else, all the bars up north for snowmobilers, all the resorts that you have thousands of people coming from all over the country up to Lake of the Woods, to Randin's area, to Devil's Lake, to South Dakota, all these big areas that the majority of their income and their economy a lot of times is based off of 4 or 5 months of winter fishing, or winter sports, and they don't have it this year. So if you're looking to go out and you're looking to buy some gear, or you're waiting for ice, please, if you can, support your local bait shops. Go to these guys. They'll work with you. I know there's probably more deals out there this year than there probably ever will be if you're looking at buying some new gear. These guys will make some deals for you if you want to come and buy some new stuff, and that's coming not from me, but that's coming from every one of our dealers that we work with.
Yep. We want to be out there just as bad as all you guys. I would have loved to start a guiding 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I'd have loved to have kept my normal schedule, but it's not worth it. Like you said, Troy, it's not about the money. If I did this just for the money, I wouldn't do this. I'd be in some other aspect of the industry or some other industry completely different. So I want you on the lake more than you probably want to be on the lake. So just if your guide's telling you it's not safe, or we got to wait a little bit, trust his instinct, trust his gut. And sometimes people get mad at me for it. I've had it happen. I had to cancel my house rentals for last weekend. Had one guy that wasn't all that happy with me, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's not worth it. So just kind of trust a guy's gut and be safe.
Yeah. We don't want to see people go down. I mean, that's the easiest way to explain it is money and greed will kill people. And it's just not worth it. Not for a fish.
Nope.
Well, I appreciate it, Randin. Best of luck to you the rest of the season. If we don't get any ice around here, I may be coming up and come and visit you and try something new. Maybe we can get Scotty to go out there and maybe meet up with a couple of you guys.
Well, if you want to know what ice looks like, let me know. I'll send you some pictures. Insult to injury. Yeah.
That's about all the ice I have. What's funny is my pond in the backyard too. I've got a 16-foot, 3/4, maybe an acre pond in the backyard, and even that thing's wide open. I mean, there's no movement back there, and I was out in the kayak paddling around here the other day, picking a couple of the dog toys that blew into the lake or into the pond. But it's just crazy. I mean, I don't want to see it anymore. I want to see some cold, and I want to get out on that ice.
Yep. We're all with you.
All right, sir. Well, Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining. And guys, if you're looking to get out, go for a trip, give Randin a call. His website's here, Lockjaw Guide Service. You can find him on Facebook. Please share his information, and he offers everything. He's got sleepers, he's got portables. The guy can catch carp, he can catch muskies, walleyes. He can do it all. But more importantly, he's one of the good guys in the industry. Super personable, and really, really like chatting with him and seeing him at the shows. Definitely keep up what you're doing there, bud.
I appreciate that a lot. I'm just a guy that likes to fish and in the right point in my life. So I appreciate being on here. It's been an honor, and I hope everybody has a great, safe ice season.
Sounds good, man. You have a good night, and we'll see you here sometime throughout the winter, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yep. Good night, man. All right. Well, that is another episode, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll get out here hopefully this end of this week. We'll be able to start walking again and checking some ice. I did do some driving around today, and it's starting. I mean, most of the lakes over here in Washera County were wide open. Everything I drove by was all water. Even like Irigami, some of these small, shallow lakes had a little bit of ice forming around the edges, but for the most part, just completely wide open water. So we're starting from scratch. Tonight, probably it's not going to do a whole lot. They're talking upper 20s, mid 20s. And then tomorrow night is when the bottom's going to drop out 15 degrees, and it keeps getting lower each night after that. So we'll have hopefully some ice pictures for you guys this weekend. And I'm crossing my fingers. Please say some prayers for some cold weather. Happy New Year to everybody. If you have any questions or whatnot for Randin, feel free to send me a note. If you can't find him, I'll get everything over to him. But he runs an awesome program up in Ottertail, and beautiful country up there. It's God's country. Really is. It's so pretty, and it sounds like they don't have the pressure that the big areas, like the Lake of the Woods and the Winnie and the Leech and Devil's Lake get all the major people that flock to those areas. Ottertail is kind of one of those long lost secret type places that do really well, and the fishing's really good up there too. So give those guys give Brandon a call, and if you're looking to get out and you want to drive, he's not too far from most of the places here. I think it's a pretty quick drive up there. So that's what I got. I will catch you guys next week, and until then, be safe and stay dry. We'll catch you guys on the water. Have a good night.